everybody. Welcome back to Rock and Roll Shin-Soo Choo. My name is Gabe Estel. I'm here with my wonderful co-hosts Dennis Levi Leach and Jonathan Getz. How's it going, guys?
Hello.
All right, this is episode number 18.
18.
Good stuff here. So we made it to 18, boys, and we're going to talk about being 18 tonight. And we've got some other stuff here. A lot's happened since we talked to you last time. I want to go ahead and start it off then with the lead-off portion. A few topics here in the news. Obviously, the big story coming out of music this week was when Kanye West interrupted Beck. He interrupted him, but he didn't say anything.
Right.
Right? So it was kind of this meta Kanye thing. I don't know. For one, wasn't really that offended by it. A lot of people saying, that it's so disrespectful and what have you. At this point, I've just kind of accepted the fact that that's what that guy does.
He's on his own planet Kanye, and he's pretty oblivious.
Yeah, I liked how Beck handled it really smoothly and was just like, "Oh yeah, buddy, I need help. Come on up here." It was like
a really nice guy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He played the situation right, and it was all about Beyonce, and it's like the second time I think he's like really said stuff like sticking up for her.
Beyonce,
do you think
to win an award?
Do you think if it was Danzig up there, he would have gone up there?
No.
But it's Little Beck,
That's a good.
Yeah. No, he chooses his opponents wisely.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift, Yeah.
I think there was like some European award show a few years ago too. It was like the MTV, the Music Video Award, the video, whatever they are, Europe, and he interrupted some band up there as well. I think that was even pre-Taylor Swift. So, I mean, it was a dickish thing to do. But I don't know. I don't get that outraged about it, I guess.
About outraged at the outrage, and yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a show. I mean, first of all, handing out awards for music is kind of silly to begin with, but then arguing over who should win these silly awards is even more obnoxious. And makes even less sense.
Yeah. Well, and it's not the first time anything happened. Back in the 70s, in the Country Music Awards, when your Charlie Rich was the presenter. And the award for, I don't know, best song or best album, it went to John Denver. Right. And he opened the card and read it and saw it went to John Denver and pulled out a lighter and lit it on fire.
Wow.
It's the best burn ever, man.
Wow.
I've seen that, dude. It's
awesome. Great. We'll post that on the website.
Yeah, I didn't know John Denver was so divisive back then. I mean, I guess that was that was kind of in the throes of outlaw country. It'd have been like 74 or 75. So, yeah. And Charlie Rich is awesome. So, yeah. But, yeah, I don't get that pissed off about it. I guess maybe if I was younger and more and just angrier about what I liked and just more assertive with what I liked, I probably would, but
it's interesting, there's the whole idea of bringing race into it and why, they're apparently the Grammys don't televise. Obviously, they don't televise 80% of the Grammys that they hand out on a given year.
Right. Yeah. Best flute solo and things like that.
Yeah. And so apparently they don't televise a lot of hip hop and R&B, which would blow my mind because it would be such a huge viewership.
Yeah, right.
Because it's been the most popular music for the last 20 years. And I did look back at the awards for best album, and since 1990, I think there's been 6 or 7 black artists who have won, which seems a little low. I don't think that there's a race thing. I looked up how to vote. If you want to be a part of a voting member for the Grammys, you just need to have an album that came out in the last 5 years. With at least 12 songs on it on iTunes, and you can apply to be a voting member.
Wow.
So, and maybe it's, I don't know, maybe R&B and hip hop fans are less likely to be a part of that academy, or to listen to that much. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's. I'll give the guy this. He keeps things at Kanye. He keeps things.
Oh yeah, man.
No doubt.
He's great for a press clip.
He knows how to, because it's like, the show's never really going to be broad enough to satisfy everyone. It's really all about marketing now anyway. I mean, the real show begins on the internet. That's where, like, can this moment be turned into a hashtag? That's what every award show is now,
Yeah, and good for the Grammys, because otherwise a lot of people would have said, woke up the next day and been like, "Oh, the Grammys was last night."
Right.
So they were probably digging it.
Yeah. A couple other things then. James Shields signs a 4-year deal, kind of the last big free agent to come off the board. 4-year deal with the Padres. I know all of us were keeping an eye on him. I guess the Cubs were in the mix, but it didn't.
They didn't want to give that 4th year.
Right.
I don't blame him.
He's 33, I think, right? Yeah.
Yep, you are correct.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he might have, because I think he was originally looking for like 5 years.
Yeah, when at the beginning of the offseason,
Yep, he was looking for 5 years, 9 figures.
Yeah, so he might have priced himself out a little bit, and then finally, major off-season players, the San Diego Padres. I didn't think I would be saying that a year ago. Swoop in and get the deal done. So I don't know.
They've officially won the James Shields Will Myers trade.
Yeah.
So forget about the Rays and the Royals. The Padres win that deal.
Yeah. I think they're officially going to finish in third place as well. Still.
Yeah.
These signings. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Shields is gone. One other thing I want to talk about, or two other things actually. AC/DC, like obviously they've always been popular. Always, but they've been popular for decades now. Huge tour. They're playing Wrigley Field.
Yeah.
I saw that. That would be awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I guess I wasn't surprised that they were going to tour again, because it had been in the works. They have a new album out, despite they've been through a lot in the last year with Phil Rudd and Malcolm. I'd never imagined AC/DC playing Wrigley Field. But
so the baseball field, football field, it's officially replaced the amphitheater, right? Otherwise, they may have played Tinley or something like that.
Right.
And so it's a very in vogue thing to do, because I think they're doing it. They're playing Dodger Stadium as well. So
okay.
Yeah.
Bunch of big shows. Yeah, it seems that way. Yeah, it seems that's the preference for a lot of bigger acts. Like there's Foo Fighters are playing Wrigley this summer as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Becoming pretty common. Although nobody's ever played Kaufman. Arrowhead gets a show or two a year.
Right. I think the Stones have played Arrowhead before, I think.
Yeah.
So there was that. And then one other, I'm looking at these rankings. These preseason rankings are starting to come in. And excuse me. Take it a little bit with a grain of salt, but the consensus seems to be the Nationals, like the ones I've read at least, that Washington, at least on, and this is all on paper.
Yeah, they've been champions on paper, I think, a few years running now.
Right, and they never had it really enough to seal the deal. They always lose in the playoffs, so I don't know. People are picking among our 3 teams. A lot of people are underestimating the Royals, or I shouldn't say underestimating. I don't know what they're undervaluing the Royals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, would be a better way to put it. Like a lot of people are saying, they're There's no way they're going to repeat.
Yeah,
I don't think
no way they'll be good again. Yeah,
82 games. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be hard to recapture that magic. And when you think that, it wasn't until the last couple weeks of the season and then just being on cruise control right into the World Series that took everybody by surprise, and nobody even then still believing that they were in the top 2 teams in baseball. Once the buzz wears off and you come back around to February, I'm not surprised, and I don't think they're surprised, and hopefully it keeps that proverbial chip on their shoulder, I guess.
Well, it seems like everything they lost, they replaced with something that could be inferior. Like Morales replaces Butler. Volquez replaces Shields.
I think that they're hoping that the upside of Morales is greater than the ceiling that Butler seems to have already hit.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. Morales is younger, I assume, or maybe not.
No, I think they're about the same age. He might be a year or two older.
Yeah, and with the Cubs and the White Sox, I haven't seen this, but I thought I heard it quoted on the radio that the Sporting News was picking the Cubs to win it.
Really?
The series?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's insane.
Wow.
And granted, I think they're going to be improved. I said the Cubs would be improved before they even made all these moves. I thought they were going to, excuse me, flirt with 500 this year.
Yeah.
And now they've got a chance to finish above 500. I think it'll only be by a game or two. But and the White Sox, obviously they probably made the highest volume of transactions among the 3 teams. But a lot of people are still kind of picking us in the middle of the pack, so we shall see. That's the show. We're going to talk about all that stuff coming up soon. So, spring training right around the corner, fellas. All right. What I want to talk about tonight, we're turning back the clock a little bit in our own lives. In accordance with this being episode 18, we're going to talk about where we were musically and where baseball was. All of us were 18. So, my glasses were bigger, my hair was longer, and really, for me, 1997 marks the beginning of the granola years. I don't regret them. Some of the choices I made probably, some of the string cheese incidents that I participated in. But taking a look at kind of, I was starting college in 1997, and most of the stuff on the radio, that kind of seemed to be the era of like Third Eye Blind, Better Than Ezra, the Verve Pipe, all these kind of just sort of generic, I hate to use the word like alternative acts, that were still kind of hanging around from the mid 90s, and all of those bands you don't hear anything from today. So I kind of was, I'd been listening to classic rock all throughout high school, and I think by the time I set foot on a college campus, it's like, well, the new music for me is going to be, the whatever's crunchy, I mean, like that's when like bootlegs started coming into play. I started, collecting tapes. All of that stuff really happened, that freshman year of college for me. I got my first Crows show on Maxell XL2. You had to send blanks and postage.
B&P.
Right, like really, really primitive internet sites that or people like GeoCities sites where people list their shows. Right. So I mean that was the music I took then. It was like I was bound to take that route. It's like if you liked classic rock, then you went to college in the late 90s. I think it's pretty obvious that you're going to get into jam bands probably. I mean, seems that way. It was for me, at least.
Natural progression. Yeah.
And for most of, I mean, the two of you as well. Everybody was on that bus for a little while.
Oh yeah.
But I was thinking then, what if I could do it all over again? What would I be listening to? So I looked at some albums that came out in 1997, and I wasn't listening to OK Computer, and I should have been probably. Urban Hymns by The Verve, a great record that came out that year. I probably dismissed it at the time because it was popular. It
was on a Nike ad, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It was all over, and I picked up that record probably about 10 years ago or so, and I was like, wow, Jesus, I should have been listening.
It's a really good record. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're a couple before that, Northern Soul and whatever the other. Those three records in a row that they've got are all really good. And then another record that came out in 97, and I would not have been nearly cool enough to discover it. I don't know who would have turned me on to it anyway, because everybody was listening to 40-minute You Enjoy Myselfs in my dorm room. But anyway, Perfect From Now On by Built to Spill, which is just a fantastic record, also came out in 1997. So yeah, all three of those records are what I should have been listening to, but instead, I was sharing in the groove. But what? I don't regret it, and I still like Fish, so I can't say much. I still go see them. I don't regret any of it, but it was some crunchy years there. And for live music, that's, I guess, I'll say this, those years really got me out to concerts a lot.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because all of those bands, all those jam bands were touring so frequently, So, and, they would come around 2-3 times a year. So, you really had a lot of opportunities to see them. And one of the shows that really kind of, put me on that path was a friend of mine from college named Luke, who was really kind of the one that sort of turned me on. Like, I knew the Grateful Dead before I went to college, but, he had a bunch of bootlegs, yada, yada, you know how it goes. So he introduced me to Widespread Panic, and I had heard of them like that summer, when I was about to start college, but I didn't know their music. It hadn't really reached Petersburg to my knowledge. And, he turned me on to him. He played me a couple shows. I thought it was good. I picked up a little bit on the Allman Brothers feel to it. And then, he kind of out of the blue was like, hey, they're playing up in DeKalb at the Student Union in DeKalb at Northern Illinois University. So we drove up there, and it was just, a fantastic show. It was like a Tuesday night, like in, the little ballroom in the Student Union. The place was probably like half full, probably like maybe 400, 500 people there. And, they blew the roof off the place, man.
Sweet.
I actually found that show on video on the Panic Stream website. Somebody taped, you can do audio or video, the whole show's up there. And it was a really good set list full of like a lot of the live staples that they do. Actually, probably set list wise, it was probably the best Panic show I've ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they did Dear Mr. Fantasy for the encore, it was
sweet.
And It Stoned Me, during the first set. So good covers, they did Chilly Water, Please, Tall Boy,
Space Wrangler.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty classic set list. So yeah, that really turned me on. Some other shows that year, that summer, I saw Santana, pre-Rob Thomas. I saw The Who do the Quadrophenia show. When they were, gosh, and to think like that was 18 years ago, and I thought they were really old then.
Right.
Now they're getting ready to do a 50th anniversary.
Right.
Yeah, you had to go see them, before they hung it up.
Right, yeah. And then I saw Yes for the first time that fall down at the Fox Theater in St. Louis, which is still to this day my favorite venue.
Yeah, great place to see them.
My favorite venue, man. Just such a beautiful place. I'm sad that I haven't made it down there in quite a few years. So yeah, for me, man, that was 1997 in music. Was really kind of getting on the jam band path, so to speak. And as far as what I've retained from it, I still listen to the Dead quite frequently. I still listen to Fish quite frequently. Obviously, I got into the Crows. I liked them in high school, but I really, really got into them that fall in '97, and obviously they stuck around. So, there's some residual effect from that era that I still cherish. So,
yeah,
Nice.
yeah. It's funny how almost 20 years later, and the stuff that sticks around and versus I like that you opened with the stuff that you should have been listening to, because I certainly have more that I should have been listening to that I was.
The narrative would have changed if I would have been listening to OK Computer instead of Space Wrangler.
Yeah, for sure.
So all part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right on.
Yeah. So moving on to 1998. Jonathan.
Yeah, that 1998 in music. Of course, I graduated that year. Graduated high school, and fortunately, there was pretty good band that was going on tour that year. Pearl Jam was touring on Yield, and we got tickets for. They were doing 2 nights at Alpine Valley, and then a day off, and then playing United Center in Chicago, and then 2 days off, and then they were doing Riverport in St. Louis, and so had went to all of those.
Nice.
And
the Riverport show too. Okay, nice.
Yeah, and that was quite a trip. There was a bunch of us that we took a van up, a buddy's van, and up to Alpine, and we stayed. I have a lot of family that lives near Alpine and Burlington, Wisconsin, so we stayed with my aunt and uncle in their. We were actually just going to camp in their backyard. I think there may have been 6 or 7 of us, and. First night at Alpine rocked. It was intense, man, because they just packed that lawn. Alpine is just so steep,
Yeah.
And
the first time you had been to Alpine as well?
Yeah, it may have been. Yeah. And so we were about 10 people up from the front of the lawn in the center, and it was. I mean, there was nowhere you could go. One of my buddies had to piss in a cup. Because you couldn't go, you couldn't get out,
right.
And so of course you're hoping that you're kind of worried, and so that Pearl Jam comes out and opens with Evolution, do the Evolution, and the whole lawn you just start moving around, like it's just a tidal wave of you're just kind of moving with everybody.
Absolutely.
It was nuts. So yeah, that was just the first night, and go back. And camping in the backyard, and my uncle comes out. It's like 3-4 in the morning, and it's really windy. And my uncle says, "Hey, you guys might want to come in. There's a pretty big storm coming." So we go in the house, which incidentally is the same house that my mom grew up in, and we all pack like sardines at the bedroom at the end of the hall, and sure enough, this huge ass storm busted through, and so he really saved us there. But and then in between the shows, the van that we drove up in, actually a guy pulled out in front of us, and there was a big wreck. It was pretty scary.
Oh, wow.
The guy that hit us and pulled out in front of us was pretty bloodied, and it was pretty scary. And so anyway, the van was all beat up as a result, and my buddy's trying to fix it, and in the driveway the next day and everything. And so they get the coat hangers and water and kind of it's good enough to go. And so second show at Alpine, then head over to Chicago for the show at United Center. Gabe, did we meet up with you there?
Yeah.
So Gabe Gabe, you and I had those fan club seats in the back of the floor. This is before seniority mattered in the 10 club. Back of the floor seats in an arena are kind of the worst seats you can have in the house. And
sound being pretty bad.
Yeah. And at one point during the encore of that, they start ripping up Bob O'Reilly, and I looked to my right, and you were just gone. You were nowhere to be seen. Right. And you had run up to the front, right?
Right, I ran up to the front, and probably a little bit juvenile, but the people who were in the front row were very cool to me, and I didn't like invade their. I guess in the midst of all the chaos, I tried to be somewhat respectful, I guess.
Yeah. And it's the encore. There's only like a song and a half to go, so.
Yeah. So, it was... Yeah, something came over me, so...
Yeah. It was pretty... It was intense. It was a fun time. And then, so we drove... actually, I ended up going home that night with another friend all the way downstate, and apparently the van came the next day, and that van... made it to his driveway, broke down in that driveway, and never started again.
It was a fucking trip.
Oh man, no doubt. So yeah, the four PJ shows in a week is a badge of honor.
That was really in the live setting, a kind of a turning point for them.
Yeah,
that tour.
Yeah,
it was Cameron's first tour.
Yep.
But they became tighter live on the PA tour, in my opinion.
Yeah, and in their repertoire built up, so they could start to mix up the set lists a bit more. That's the Live on Two Legs tour for anybody who's curious. Official release.
5 LPs under their belt at that point, so they mix up the set list.
Yep. No doubt that was a solid tour. Horde Festival with Ben Harper. That's his autograph. That's his scribbled autograph. Actually made it out to San Francisco that year. Just a little family vacation.
Oh, nice.
And I drugged my older sister. I wanted to go to the Fillmore to see anybody. I didn't care who it was. And I was fortunate enough to catch Stephen Stills at the Fillmore while I was out there. In September, saw the Crows at the rave.
Yeah.
That's Rich's autograph on there, if you can see it glistening.
Okay.
That was September. That was the same time I started dating my future wife. To give you a little perspective of time. Moving on to October, Mudhoney and Mike Watt, which was a solid show. Yes. My wife has letting her presence be known after 18 years. Mudhoney, Mike Watt. Mike Watt was doing the Contemplating the Engine Room tour that year. Nels Cline on guitar, and they performed it in its entirety, opening up for Mudhoney, and they went balls to the wall along with Mudhoney that night. It was pretty phenomenal.
Nice. Where was that? Was that at the Double Door?
No, that was at the Metro.
Okay.
It closed out the year 2 nights back to back at the Aragon, Gabe, with you.
Yes.
Blues Traveler, December 30th and the 31st.
Wow.
Remember that? Salmon opened up for those shows.
That's right. Yeah.
So that was kind of the last throes of the Blues Traveler era there. Era 1. Yeah.
Right.
Died.
Bobby. Yeah.
A few months later.
Yeah. So, and you were talking about what you were listening to versus what you should have been listening to, and I dug through all my CDs, and there were only 2 albums that I think I bought when they came out. 3. Yield, Dose, and then that Mudhoney record that they were touring on that year. All pretty solid stuff, can't complain there. That's one of my favorite Mudhoney records. Also came out that year that I didn't get until later, Bell and Sebastian, Boy with the Arab Strap. Pretty seminal album, Neutral Milk Hotel. Jeff Buckley kind of collected works that he was working on when he died. Gomez, Bring It On.
Great album.
And one of my favorite Elliott Smith records, XO. Yeah, and yeah, all that stuff I didn't get until I was in college or after. So it's all still pretty much rock oriented. So it wasn't like venturing too far out, but pretty solid stuff.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
nice. Well, yeah, 1999. That would have been my year when I was the 1A. And so I had a lot to live up to because Prince told me it was going to be an awesome fucking year. So I had a lot to live up to with that. Just as like an overview of some of the music then, that out of a lot of this, like I really probably only listened to maybe the Red Hot Chili Peppers. That was when the year they came out with Californication, which was their first album in like almost 10 years with John Frusciante back on it.
Artwork on that record.
And so that was a decent record, and I think it's an important record in their progression as artists. But some of the rest of it, as Gabe mentioned, that was the year that Santana teamed up with
Supernatural.
Yeah, from Matchbox 20 and Michelle Branch and whoever he, like, they basically took him to the like record studio, and there were like other mainstream popular artists of the time there, and he's like, let's just have all these guys on my record.
Yeah, Clive Davis, like, who's popular right now?
Yes, and so yeah, that was awful. We were introduced to Britney Spears that year. That was Britney Spears' "Hit Me Baby One More Time." So yeah, the downfall of society can be traced back to 1999, guys. That was also the year the introduction of Slim Shady, the alter ego of Marshall Mathers, also known as Eminem, and that sold a lot of copies.
He's rapping about the same shit.
Yeah, right.
God, that between those three albums, actually, those are three huge, probably the biggest selling albums in a decade.
Probably.
Oh yeah.
Between those three, like 40 million.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They another kind of interesting thing was the first Coachella was in '99.
Oh yeah.
And it had Beck, the Chemical Brothers, Tool, Rage Against the Machine, and Morrissey were there. That was the first lineup for Coachella.
That's solid.
And then another festival that was well known and well talked about was Woodstock '99, and it was basically the anti-music festival, and it was all about corporate greed and, you know, selling anything with Pepsi's logo on it. Like, as many things as they could put a Pepsi logo and Woodstock '99 on, they would. And it ended in fires and...
You know how much those tickets were, though? For Woodstock '99? Like $150.
Oh, yeah.
Which is nothing.
Compared to today.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes $300 to get into Bonnaroo now, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There were some good bands that played that year. Like Mo played it in '99.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Strange Folk, like all the crunchy bands I was listening to at the time played it as well. I don't know how well they received they were with Korn on the bill, but yeah.
Yeah, I was going to touch on some of the artists that we lost in '99. Mel Torme passed away that year.
I was rocking some Mel earlier this week.
Yeah, Dusty Springfield.
'94 in Springfield.
Yeah. Rick Danko from the band. He passed away in '99.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Curtis Mayfield. He also passed away that year. And Dick from the Dick's Picks series of the Grateful Dead.
Wow.
Dick Letavla. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
But as far as my musical experiences at the time, I would have been a senior in high school, like everybody else was in their year. I saw a lot of shows. I found my tickets, and I have a lot of them. And my first show of the year was in January. January 19th at Rosemont Horizon, I saw Black Sabbath and Pantera.
Sweet.
Was the opener.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the show for one reason, was that it was the worst seats I've ever had at a concert ever. And they were all the way behind the stage and up like in the mezzanine.
Nice.
So I could see like the front half of the stage, but you could also see everything behind the stage. And so I could see the guys getting ready when Pantera was playing, and they wheeled a huge cart full of drinks, and they were like solo cups, and each had like a half a drink in each cup. I don't know if it was beer or whiskey or what. And so they would grab the cups, Dimebag Darrell and Phil Anselmo, and they would heave these cups into the audience. And like guys would like catch them and like chug the beer and like throw the cups. It was one of the craziest things I'd ever been a part of.
That would have been the reunion tour.
For Black Sabbath, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so after that, my tickets at shows, I didn't see another show until May, but then I saw like 4 in a matter of about a month. And the first one of those was May 5th at Riverport, was Lenny Kravitz and the Black Crowes.
So
that would have been on the By Your Side tour, unfortunately. Yeah, I could just remember we didn't stay for Lenny Kravitz. Like, as soon as the Black Crowes got done, I think we hung out, and like the first song I think Lenny Kravitz started with, he started the song playing guitar, and halfway through the song, like some tech ran out and grabbed the guitar, and then he like grabbed the mic and like went to his knees and was singing, and I was like, okay, then leave. And so we left. Hindsight, maybe I should have stayed and saw the rest of the Lenny Kravitz show. Who knows?
Just like stuff off like a Mama Said, and
yeah,
that'd have been all right.
Yeah, this wasn't the Are You Gonna Go My Way tour, you know. After that, on May 23rd, I saw up in Chicago at Tinley Park, it was Aerosmith, and it doesn't say on the ticket, but I'm almost positive this was the show, because I saw Aerosmith about 7 times back then. I think Monster Magnet was the opener for that. Their radio hit that they had. They somehow got hooked up with Aerosmith and were the opener.
Interesting.
And that was a really good show. Aerosmith, I say this all the time, I'll hold up for live Aerosmith, man. They always put on a really good live show. And I mean, granted, they have to play, you know, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing and stuff like that, but they also always played really deep cuts, too. They would play like Lord of the Thighs. They would play No More, No More. They would play good old Aerosmith songs to where, like, if you were a deep cut Aerosmith fan, you would walk away happy most of the time. The next show was May 28th, also at Tinley Park, and that was John Cougar Mellencamp and Sunvolt. And who's still around, I guess. You don't hear much if they are.
I think they still tour. I mean, Jay Farrar's the only like original member.
Member now, yeah.
And that would have when you saw it. Well, I saw him that tour as well, and that would have been the original foursome that played on those first 3 records.
Yeah.
He had those 2 brothers in the band. I forgot their names, but yeah.
Well, and right after that, I would have graduated high school, and it wasn't but like 2 weeks after that I ended up going to college to DeVry up in Chicago. And believe it or not, while I was at DeVry, I didn't go to any concerts. I Ferris Buellered it. I skipped a lot of school and went to Cubs games. And so I ended up not liking DeVry, and I came back home, and my last show of the year was the last day of the year. It was New Year's Eve of the millennium. And this is at the Pontiac Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan. And it was Metallica, Ted Nugent, Kid Rock, and Seven Dust was the band.
Party.
And, it was a huge party. The backstory on this is my buddy Daryl was in the Metallica fan club, and he had always wanted to go see them at like a huge event like this. And he got the tickets, and we had really good tickets. And, he met a guy on the Metallica fan club forum, and he lived in Chicago. And this guy, we drove to his house, never met him in our life, and we drove with him from Chicago over to Detroit.
Oh yeah.
And so it turns out we get to this guy's house, and he's the biggest Scorpions fan I've ever seen in my life. He has three copies of every Scorpions record. He's like, this is the unopened copy. Here is a UK version. This is the German import. Yeah, the guy was really hardcore about the Scorpions, and he was a bartender.
He was like so black. He's like, "Tell me how you feel."
Yeah, yeah. He brought a case of alcohol, and we were underage, and he's like, "Oh, you guys can help me drink it." I'm like, "Okay." And so we got in a car with a guy we'd never met before, and went and saw Metallica, and it was a great show. They played, all the great songs. It was still with Jason Newsted, and Ted Nugent was good that night. He I'll never forget, he rode a live buffalo onto the stage in a full Indian chief headdress, and then got off of the buffalo and then did the whole flaming arrow into the guitar. Mm-hmm. And Kid Rock, when he played, on both sides of the drummer, it
was like first starting to gain popularity.
Oh yeah, and on each side of the drummer were two stripper poles with like two of the hottest strippers I've ever seen in my life, going to town the whole concert while he played.
That midget that was still alive?
Yeah, he was there, Joey C or whatever. Yeah, he was his hype man. Any good rapper has a hype man. Come on.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I wrapped up 99 in style. Pontiac, Michigan.
That's sweet.
From the new millennium, dude.
Yeah.
Shit, a couple of years ago, the three of us could have bought the Pontiac Silver. Seriously. It went for like $500,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So
that's crazy.
Cost $400,000 just to blow it up.
There was about 70,000 people there. Something crazy like that. 60.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nuts, y'all.
That's brave of you to go to Detroit to ring in the Millennium.
Right.
Oh yeah. It was like, Y2K, the world's gonna end. It's like, well, we're gonna die at Metallica.
Sweet.
Man, that's awesome. Excellent. Now, for baseball, did we lose Levi?
No,
he's still.
Yeah, you're frozen. We're just gonna have to deal with it. We can hear you.
Am I frozen? Really?
It's glorious pause.
It's much more flattering this time around.
Look like you're singing a Bruno Mars song.
Do you want me to? I can turn off video and turn it back on.
No. Keep it up. So, talking about baseball, in those years, kind of grim years for the White Sox. We were kind of, sort of, seemed like we were always mired in second or third place, usually with like an 82 and 82 or an 80 and 82 record. So I started to look back at the 1997 season for baseball, and as a lot of people know, most people know, that was the year the Florida Marlins' first championship. And, they had really only been a franchise for about 4 years.
It's amazing.
And, I knew Bonilla was on the team, but I started looking at the rest of the lineup. It was a good lineup. They played the Indians that year, and I think the Indians had a much better lineup. I'll get to that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
You had a 20-year-old Edgar Renteria on the Marlins that year. You had Jeff Conine the Barbarian, Charles Johnson,
yep.
around for a while, Moses Salou, who was already 30 at that point.
Yeah.
It's like,
Wow.
Yeah. A holdover from our baseball card collecting days, Devon White.
Sweet. Yeah.
Right? And then you had Sheffield was on that team as well. So, it was a lot of high-priced talent. Sheffield in the prime of his career. Bonilla near the end of it, but still productive. Jim Eisenreich was on the bench.
Was Al Leiter in that rotation?
What's that?
Al Leiter, was he in that rotation?
Yes. Kevin Brown, Al Leiter, Alex Fernandez. Guy named Tony Saunders.
Yeah.
Levon Hernandez, only 22.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the other dudes I don't. Felix Heredia, I remember him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the other pitchers. They had Brown and Leiter and Fernandez. So that was a pretty good 1 through 3 at that point. I remember Kevin Brown was just being like he was being paid a shitload of money.
Like he was most of his career.
Right, and it wasn't that great. Darren Dalton was on the team that year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Cliff Floyd was on the team as well. So a lot of big names. Craig Counsell was on the team. John Cangelosi. Mark Kotze, 21-year-old Mark Kotze. So yeah, a lot of big names on that Marlin team, and then the story goes the next year the team they just blew the whole thing up. That was probably one of the World Series where, probably the least enthusiastic reception from a city. I mean, like to this day, like Miami hasn't even adopted the Marlins. I mean, so I can't imagine like it was pandemonium down in Florida when they won. And if it was short-lived. But to me, the Cleveland team was better that year. You've got Jim Thome, he's 26, hitting his stride. He had 40 home runs that year, right? You got Omar Vizquel, already 30, but still sort of...
Really? He was 30? Jeez.
Such a great player. Matt Williams was on that Cleveland team. I barely remember him playing for the
No.
Yeah, I kind of do.
Yeah.
Was
Brian,
Albert Bell already gone?
what's that? Albert Bell was gone. Yeah, he was with the White Sox, actually. Or no,
Oh, okay.
he was either with Baltimore or the White Sox. Let me... Hold on, I've got the White Sox page up here. Yeah, Albert Bell was on the White Sox.
Okay.
Sandy Alomar? Dude hit 324 that year.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So Sandy Alomar, Marquise Grissom, obviously the big one, Manny Ramirez.
Yep.
Yeah, huge season that year. Home run was a little low. He was only 25 at the time. Dude hit 328 that year. So, and also, I'm sorry, David Justice was the DH, and he hit 329. So, you're looking at this.
They were raking.
Looking at this team here, man. You got 3 guys hitting over 320.
Yeah.
Alomar,
awesome.
Ramirez, Justice. Nobody in the lineup is hitting below 262. You got 2 guys in the 280s. Tony Fernandez, veteran Tony Fernandez, was on that team.
Mm-hmm.
That was a hell of a team, man.
Yeah.
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 That. And then that was in 97. Oh, no, I thought they still had Hershiser. They didn't have Hershiser. Or wait, did they? Yes, they did. They still had Hershiser.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, he was 38. They had Hershiser, Charles Nagy, Bartolo Colon, a young Bartolo Colon.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah, Eric Plunk. Right. Jack McDowell was on that Cleveland team.
Really?
Yeah. Paul Ossenmacher. Yeah, so, hell of a... But that lineup, man, I'll just run through it really quickly. Alomar, Thome, Fernandez, Vizquel, Matt Williams, Brian Giles, Marquise Grissom, Manny Ramirez, David Justice. That's a team, man.
Was that the order?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I was like, Thome batting second. That's crazy.
Yeah, point there. But that's the lineup. That's who they were rolling out every day.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I mean, that was probably Cleveland's best shot at a championship in 50 years.
I remember there was some Cleveland apparel around. You would see guys in Cleveland stuff.
Well, yeah, that was when that stadium wasn't very old. Remember Jacobs Field? It had only been couple years. And that place, every time I saw it on TV, was just a madhouse.
They had a record for a record streak for sellouts that went on for years.
And you know what? Last year or the year before, they had the worst attendance in baseball.
Yeah.
So,
knock it down, build another one.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, that's what stood out to me really in baseball that year was, the Marlins blowing up. Just a hell. I couldn't remember if they played the Yankees. Before I looked all this up, I was like, I think they played the Yankees that year. But no, it was the Indians, who had their second World Series appearance in 3 years.
Yeah.
Went 95 against the Braves. But yeah, just a hell of a team in Cleveland that year. Just a solid veteran. Well, aside from Manny and Tommy were young, but just a hell of a team.
Yeah.
So that's baseball in 1997 for me.
Yeah, that's it was going into 98. Unfortunately, we get into some Yankee heyday, which kind of makes us all a little nauseous. But at 98 is I think even though the Yankees won 114 games in 98.
Jesus.
Which is a lot of freaking games. There were some teams that year that finished like 50 games out of first place. The Rays, I believe. But the year's going to be more remembered for the home run chase. Obviously, Sosa, McGuire. 4 players hit 50 home runs that year, including King Griffey Jr. and Greg Vaughn hit 50 that year.
Wow.
Milwaukee?
No, San Diego. Greg Vaughn was the centerpiece in that lineup that faced the Yankees in the World Series.
Yeah, it's hard to believe the Padres went to the World Series.
Yeah.
Not that long ago.
Hey, somebody had to get Wally Joyner back there. Kerry Wood, Levi. Kerry Wood was a rookie that year. Won Rookie of the Year, struck out 20 at one point.
Yeah.
Also was overused at the end of the year, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. That's the story. That's the story of the Cubs with great pitchers. We tend to burn them out young.
Jim Riggleman left him out there too long or something.
Oh yeah, they. And part of me hates that fact that Wood at least never got like a World Series or something like that, because now it's like when they talk about Wood, that's all they talk about is
the injuries.
That's a huge achievement.
Yeah.
But like he's much a better pitcher than that. I mean, he was consistent for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they made the playoffs that year, right?
Yeah, I always liked
98.
Yeah, we were the wild card, I think, in 98.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it's just I don't know. He was one of those guys, him and Dempster. They're 2 guys, you wish you could have seen them get a ring, but
yeah.
Or as a Cub at least. Dempster got one as a Red Sox.
Yeah.
Right.
Though he wasn't a huge contributor to that team.
No.
And actually, I saw Kerry Wood a few months ago at a Pearl Jam show in St. Louis. At one point, he was on stage with a tambourine. So
nice.
But anyway, let's get back to that season. Sosa hits 20 in June, 20 home runs in June alone.
Yeah.
Randy Johnson got traded to the Astros, where he pitched for 2 months. And he still earned Cy Young votes in the National League for only pitching there for 2 months. I mean, he was so dominant. He was like 13-2 or something. It was ridiculous. And then, so McGuire hit 62. I happened to be in St. Louis that night, as I've said before, with that little laser beam over left field wall. That night, you know who made his debut that night in that game, in the middle of the game? J.D. Drew.
Wow.
Yeah. Who was drafted like just a couple months prior. He was drafted that year. Also drafted that Pat Burrell was the number 1 pick that year in June. Mark Mulder, Corey Patterson, Levi was picked that year. 5-tool Corey Patterson.
God.
As far as like the big names in that draft, CC Sabathia, Aaron Rowand. Later picks that turned out to be pretty damn good. Adam Dunn, Matt Holliday, Mark Teixeira, and Cliff Lee. who were picked in the later rounds.
Good class, man.
Yeah. Actually, the later class was better than the first and second round.
Yeah.
So, and at one point that year, Sosa overtook McGuire for like a half a day when he hit his 66th. And McGuire tied it back up that night and then hit 2 in each of his last 2 games to hit 70.
Captivated the nation, man.
And I did go to a game that year down in St. Louis. My dad took me down there, and McGuire had a few at bats. I don't know, he grounded out a few times probably, and definitely didn't hit a home run. So yeah, it was. If we were making an effort to go down to go to a Cardinals game, then it was everybody. Everybody was just absolutely captivated, and we were just so blind to it all,
and you look back at there's cards and like posters, and McGuire's forearms are just like huge, like bulging.
We just wanted to believe that it was all Andrew Steen.
I was there too. I was like, hey, I would have believed there's a guy on the Cubs that's worth a shit.
Yeah. And it's interesting that Sosa won the MVP that year. Because his team went to the playoffs while McGuire hardly garnered any votes, even though he had technically better numbers, but the Cardinals weren't competitive that year.
Yep.
Juan Gonzalez won the AL MVP for what it's worth. Yep.
Nice.
So, like I said, the Yankees beat the Padres.
Yeah. Well, to make even worse, that's basically where my story starts.
But hold on real quick though. My Red Wings began their championship season that year, 98.
Yes. Fedorov.
Yep.
Nice.
So no, I'm sorry. That's right. Yeah, it was 97-98. So they actually won it that year. In May or June of that year. So
go Wings!
All those Russians.
Yep. Well, yeah. So baseball in '99 is more of the same. The Yankees swept the Braves 4-0 in the World Series, and so Mariano Rivera, World Series MVP, yawn.
Yeah.
97 to 99 were probably years I didn't follow baseball that closely, other than the McGuire-Sosa thing.
Yeah. And there are some nice numbers that stick out. Larry Walker hit 379 that year.
Yeah,
which I did not realize. I didn't realize he was that close to hitting 400.
That was probably the year he hit like 470 at Coors.
Yeah. Manny Ramirez that year had 165 RBIs.
Jeez. God.
Yeah. Is that not outrageous? The National League MVP was Chipper Jones, and the American League MVP was Ivan Rodriguez. And the 2 Cy Young Award winners are the 2 guys who went into the Hall together this year, Pedro and Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
They were both the Cy Young Award winners.
Well, and Pedro's year that year is considered one of the greatest years of all time for any pitcher.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Tony Gwynn got his 3,000th hit, and the Hall of Fame class was George Brett, Robin Yount, Orlando Cepeda, and Nolan Ryan. So that's a pretty good Hall of Fame class.
Solid.
In 99. The Cubs, my team, were awful. They were 30 games behind. They finished 60
year before.
Oh yeah, they were 67-95 that year.
Yikes.
Believe it or not, there were 2 teams worse than them. The Marlins lost 98 games, and the Twins lost 97. So, the Cubs were awful. After having an all right year, making the wild card and everything in '98, they certainly tanked in '99. There's also an interesting fact that, you wouldn't normally hear out of my mouth because it's about a Cardinal player. But I'd have to mention this. In April of that year, Fernando Tatis of the Cardinals hit 2 grand slams in the same inning.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Right.
Off of the same pitcher. So it became very historical. He's the only guy to hit 2 2 grand
Oh,
slams in the same inning, and then there's this pitcher that gave up 2 grand slams in the same inning. So I thought that was a pretty interesting
Yeah, that's pretty
stat.
rare.
Yeah, 2 grand slams in the same inning, 8 RBIs he finished the game with. Yeah.
Oh, so well, he was shit after that inning.
Yeah, right.
Not productive at all.
Yeah, he basically took the rest of the game off, I'd say. Yeah, so 99, not that exciting in baseball in my book, just because it was another year of more of the same Yankees. And
yeah, the Yankees were in cruise control.
Yeah, in the Midwest, it was like, it was like it's just another year of the Yankees.
Yeah, those three in a row they had 98 to 2000 were just
Well, and that was dominant. Like I said, they swept the Braves, and it's not like the Braves were an awful team. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
yeah. Well, good stuff, guys. So that was us at 18. I want to go ahead now and for closing it out, some new music recommendations. Well, it doesn't have to be new, but some stuff you've discovered lately that you'd like to share with our listeners. The band that I've been digging on lately is a band out of Detroit. It's this band called The Sights. I don't know if you guys have heard of them before. They are kind of a sort of a garage rock type band. It's kind of got a sort of a mid to late 60s kind of mod feel to it. And it's kind of it's sort of a typical story. Like they got some buzz in the early aughts when like the Strokes and the Hives and the White Stripes really emerged. That's sort of what people were calling kind of garage rock revival. In the early 2000s, they opened for Robert Plant on a tour. Signed with Warner with New Line Records. They had a song on the Wedding Singers soundtrack. And they're still together. They kind of, I think, seems like it's sort of like a part-time thing now. But I discovered them on our through. I was on a Mooney Suzuki kick a few days, and I clicked on related artists, and these guys came up, and I really dig them. The album that I like a lot here, is called "Got What We Want." It's from 2002, and so the band is called The Sights. So
is that SITES or SIGHTS?
With a little bit of kind of sort of 60s folk thrown in at times too. It's really good stuff, man. The Sights.
Is it SITES or SIGHTS?
Yep.
The latter.
Sorry.
How do you spell it?
Oh, Sights. SIGHTS.
Okay. All right.
Nice.
I'll go next, I guess.
Okay.
Mine is a Swedish band that it's kind of experimental fusion Afrobeat. It's called Goat, and the album's called Commune. This album came out last year. They have one other record that's really great as well. It's pretty intense and unusual, and but at the same time, I mean, it rocks. There's a track on here that I was listening to it today, and the first 20 seconds you'd swear it was The Who, and then all of a sudden it goes into something completely different. So it's pretty unique, and they have quite a stage presence as well. So I'll probably post something from YouTube on there. Goat, Commune.
My recommendation, I pulled it from the dollar bin. It's Duran Duran's first record. It's got the hit Girls on Film, and when I showed it to my wife, she asked me, are all those people on the cover guys? So yeah.
It's kind of like Poison's Look What the Cat Dragged In. I was like, the first time I saw that record, I was like, when I was like 7, I was like, whoa, these women are beautiful. That's a good record, man. No, like I like all Duran Duran's stuff. I'm not afraid to say it.
Yeah, man, dollar bin goodness.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, guys.
Oh shit! Now you're going. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off for us. It's this has been Rock and Roll Shin-Soo Choo, episode 18. We'll see you again real soon.
Bye.